As Arthur knelt beside his cold tin of biscuits in a trench that was more home than foxhole, he allowed himself to be enveloped by an oppressive silence broken only occasionally by distant laughter or muffled chatter from the German lines just yards away. The ground beneath him felt like it had been squeezing his boots for years, wet and grey as the mud in which even dirt seemed lost. He thought of home with a pang that echoed through these very trenches lined not just by soldiers but also hope and despair alike. He could hear water trickle down from above. Ceiling was indeed leaking again after days without rain, and the faint scent of wet earth mingled freely in this dank air that seemed to hold its breath, as if even nature itself were hesitant about what would come next. The sky overhead held nothing but greys and blues, which merged into one another like shades on a painter's palette, fading under the burden of heavy soot clouds rolling in from afar. In this sombre world Arthur watched as children played hide-and-seek with their innocence amidst cannons that roared and shelled. Sirens wailed intermittently a macabre symphony to which they danced oblivious, without fear or malice in the only freedom left. He couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie despite being an adversary across from him. Here, even within this watery grave that was their shared battlefield and refuge alike, there seemed no line between them drawn by uniforms, nor hatred to sever what they had in common as men. Fear for family back home, love lost or never found beyond the horizon of conflict. The sun struggled against a tapestry woven with haze and smoke that obscured its face from both sides, yet warmed Arthur's skin through his grimy jacket none the less. It was an ironic comfort amidst this endless grey, providing light to the darkness of sorrowful eyes. This battleground had seen so much blood spilt over a year since July 1916, a date not unfamiliar with its own weight in casualties and tales enough for generations yet born. Arthur knew too well about these stories whispered between men, as if sharing them could somehow soften the blow of their reality. He had come to find solace here among his comrades in arms who shared not just trenches, but also a bond formed in adversities, furnace or brotherhood forged by loss and resilience that transcended national identity, yet remained as fragile as the ceasefires they so often relied upon to breathe. Arthur couldn't help thinking how strange it was. Here he stood with Germans who were no different than him in their dreams of returning home or mourning those never coming back, or shared humanity that seemed all too easily forgotten amidst the cacophony of warfare's raw and artillery fire. In between sporadic bombardments, when silence stretched out like a blanket over their heads for moments long enough to make time move at its own leisurely pace, he would often find himself staring into nothingness, no enemy in sight but the fog that lay thick as woolen mists clinging stubbornly around them. It was during these times of quietude when Arthur felt most alone, his thoughts drifting to a woman with eyes like sapphires, her laughter light and clear as daybreak against this night perpetually held in their grasp by the trenches they called home for now. Her name never left him. Emily's soft smile still graced Arthur's lips when he spoke of her. Each touch upon his cheek felt like a whisper across time, an affirmation that beyond these walls encased with metal and mud was someone waiting just as patiently for peace. As the day wore onward into evening under this unending dusk without end or reprieve from conflict's ceaseless din, Arthur allowed himself to be comforted by memories of her, the scent of lilacs that once filled their garden and sunlight dancing upon emerald green leaves. As the night crawled over them like a living shadow on these sodden earth beds where each man's life was as intertwined with another's fate, he realized they were all trapped together in this time, bound by neither land nor sea, but only their shared misfortune and desperate hope for tomorrow. The thought of her became a balm to his weary soul. That she awaited the end of war as much as anyone did with bated the daylight had been a stranger, flitting just beyond the range of Arthur's vision without ever fully illuminating his world or gray-scale existence, where colors seemed to bleed together into one monotonous hue that mirrored their surroundings, damp earth and cold stone. Yet within this perpetual twilight lay memories, vivid as if they belonged not just in the past, but were now painted across every moment of Arthur's being or haunting palette, only to be colored more deeply with each sunless day that passed beneath these enduring trenches. Arthur remembered Emily's touch upon his cheek, a softness as tender and comforting as the warmth he once felt on her skin against this unrelenting chill in their shared encampment of mud-caked hopeful hearts. The scents that lingered from afar, roses blooming under skies free of war's shadow, sunlight casting patterns across a garden where laughter had lived and danced amongst the foliage, were now but phantoms amidst this relentless steel jungle they called home. Within his mind's eye Arthur could see her a vision as clear as it was painful, for within that image lay not just a woman of beauty trapped by circumstance's cruel hand, but also the unspoken promise etched between them like an invisible thread woven through their shared experiences. Her name had been whispered among his thoughts, carried on breezes he would never feel again as they roamed freely over open fields and sun-drenched meadows, her melody now silenced by cannon smoke that curled into the night sky like a shroud around them all. He often found himself lost in conversations with fellow soldiers, their laughter echoing hollow against his own emptiness, for though he shared tales of ordinary life and times when chances were not so grim, their words felt foreign on Arthur's tongue, as if they belonged to someone else. He spoke instead about Emily's eyes that shone with an inner light, a remnant hopeful spark within the encampment, where their only respite was found in shared silence and fleeting glances across mud-soaked trenches, her silent language of understanding between two souls yearning for solace. As evening turned to night without end or reprieve from conflict's din, Arthur sought comfort not just within the camaraderie that had become their daily bread, but also in memories so vivid they threatened to overwhelm him, their presence as tangible and hauntingly beautiful as if she stood beside each of them. They shared a bond deeper than blood, one forged by necessity, yet tender with care, a testament that even amidst this confluence of souls bound together in suffering's embrace, there remained something. In Trin 047b9 Chapter 2 continued to unfold as Arthur's thoughts often drifted across the trenches where men huddled against their shared misfortune. Beneath a sky unbroken by stars or some lighter canopy of perpetual dusk that seemed an endless nightfall over his life and those around him, he found himself grappling with feelings too complex to articulate in the silence of this muddy world they had come to know. The trenches were their cramped sanctuary where dreams often went unvoiced but never forgotten. Each man a bearer of stories carried far from home, or tapestry woven through time and space, yet here entangled within these darkened earth beds on the front lines that neither land nor sea could traverse. He remembered Emily's laughter as it rang clear like crystal in his ears, her mirth a beacon of light amidst their encampment, where spirits flickered low and shadows crept into every corner, threatening to suffocate the last breath of hope within each man's heart. Her name was etched upon Arthur's lips as he recounted tales not of war, but of life beyond this trencher shared narrative that bound them together across time like roots entwined deep beneath fertile ground. Even when she lay unseen and unsung in the backdrop, Arthur's mind often wandered back to his days before leaving for wartime, when sunlight kissed his cheeks and laughter filled air as sweetly untouchable by strife. He could almost hear Emily's voice amidst the echoes of their shared memories, a melody that once brought him solace in times now marked only with hushed undertones beneath the earth's crusty embrace. His thoughts strayed to her ice-vivid azure mirrored by the sky on sunny mornings and gentle waves at sea. They had been his favorite place, where she would stand arm in arm beside him as he watched life unfold in its vibrant hues around them like a living kaleidoscope. The trenches offered no such spectacle of color, no, only the grays that cloaked their existence and threatened to meld into one another with relentless persistence, reminding Arthur just how far removed they had become from his life before war claimed him as well as her sister's son's place in it. During brief respites between patrols, or while waiting for a signal that would call them back to duty at the front lines of this unnatural world, Arthur and fellow soldiers engaged in storytelling sessions wherein tales from their past lives were shared with quiet reverence. Their ritualistic exchange meant more as camaraderie than mere entertainment. It was during one such evening when a young boy's voice cracked the monotony of stories told without end. He spoke not of battles fought, but rather about Emily and her love for painting, how she would spend hours capturing moments on canvas with strokes as delicate yet determined as his mother's fingers had once been. Arthur listened intently to this innocent narrative boy, unburdened by the grim reality that lay just beyond their makeshift bedchambers, where art was not a means of escape, but an act of resistance against despair itself, for in her paintings were found semblances of hope and beauty amidst chaos. He felt a pang within his chest as memories rushed back to him, the way Emily's eyes would light up when she spoke about colors mixing on canvas, How passionately she described each scene taking form beneath the bristles dancing through her paint-covered fingers that never ceased moving until creation was complete. The soldier's heart ached for a time. He could not touch Agenor period, where life had offered him more than just toil and bloodshed, but also love's unyielding embrace. Emily, whose laughter resonated like church bells in his ears even now as she stood beside her father painting the seascapes they cherished. He yearned for those shared afternoons spent by a lush shore or within walls of their home, where love and hope were not just felt but deeply rooted, a foundation that withstood more than he could fathom, even as darkness sought to claim it all in its insatiable greed. As the night drew near upon them, Arthur found himself revisiting old photographs tucked away within his coat pocket. Images of Emily and him at her family's seaside cottage on holidays, long past, moments when time seemed to still in their shared laughter over picnics by the ocean's edge. The sea, always a constant backdrop for those days with Emily before war intervened. Its waves were not just water, but storytellers of his own life's ebb and flow, up until now a reminder that even amidst turmoil there remains beauty in continuity, if one knows where to look. Arthur's thoughts on the memories lingered like mist clinging to morning grass, when suddenly he was jolted awake by a fellow soldier's voice cutting through his reverie, call for attention that felt more intrusive than necessary at this late hour of reflection and remembrance. The man spoke without pause, about tactical discussions or imminent orders, as if each word carried the weight to alter fates. Yet Arthur found himself wishing instead they could speak on Emily's artistry in painting landscapes that mirrored their shared world, or place where colors held more truth than any stratagem of war. The soldier's voice brought him back not just from dream, but into the stark reality of his trench existence. There was no time for sentimentality when survival dictated every breath, each movement underground, as if navigating through a labyrinth without end or exit, or place where one's mind could wander only so far before being pulled back by necessity. Yet in Arthur's thoughts on Emily lingered like mist clinging to morning grass as he lay in his trench, listening for any sign of movement outside that could signal a pause from relentless shellfire overhead. His mind had traveled back through time since the last we saw each other, visiting art galleries with her brushstrokes capturing landscapes alive beneath our feet and skies painted in hues only she knew how to tame on canvas. Each scene was a testament to the beauty of existence, even as war encroached upon their lives like an unwelcome storm cloud ready to burst through any reprieve they found within its grasp. Now back in his trench with nothing but darkness and crickets for company beyond Emily's artistic echoes that remained etched into the walls of his heart, Arthur tried once more to close out today's events as he attempted a final sip from his canteen, a bitter reminder of home. The abrupt sound cut through like an icy wind against exposed skin. It was Private Duncan's voice breaking in on the silence that had settled over camp since nightfall, bringing forth memories too painful to revisit, but impossible not to acknowledge, as he spoke without pause about tactical discussions and imminent orders. Arthur jerked awake with a start, his chest constricted by the sudden intrusion of military urgency that bore no relevance in this night's quiet contemplation on artistry over warfare. Love lost to duty, as he felt Duncan doing likewise whenever they heard another voice. "Arthur," barked Private Harris from their makeshift cot next door. The young private had come seeking solace for a wound that ached with tales of trench raids and mud-soaked rescues, stories he'd rather not recount even to his best friend. Arthur forced himself back into consciousness, or soldier first in this world where personal histories were often left unwritten or forgotten amidst the cacophony of battle crying from beyond their foxholes and dugouts. "All hands, gather round!" shouted Sergeant Major Thompson, at an order that seemed to pull them all towards a huddle like vines wrapping around each other in tight embrace, before being severed by the commands and dash, stark reminder of their collective purpose as soldiers and survivors. Duncan was right beside him, still speaking with Harris about battle plans that seemed irrelevant to Arthur's present thoughts on his own life outside these mud-caked walls. He wished for a moment they could all speak not just words, but the language of artistry, one thing Emily had left behind when she escaped before war claimed her. "Look, Duncan, you remember that sunset by Normandy Bay, the way it dyed the horizon in flame? Arthur asked with an attempt at levity to lighten their mood as they waited for orders under Sergeant Major Thompson's watchful eye, man who had seen too many young faces like their own through seasons of conflict, yet whose eyes always seemed brighter when discussing things beyond the military. Duncan chuckled in response, but quickly regained focus on duty, as they were called to form up by a grunt's whistler sound that sliced deeper into Arthur's thoughts than any shell could, reminding him of another time when he and Emily walked hand in hand along the beach under such skies. As night began its relentless crawl across their encampment at St. Lo's Ridger Place, that held a grim honor in Arthur's heart for being where they first met, but also pained him to remember it was here one of them lost her life too soon under the cloak of darkness, as an enemy shell claimed what little joy remained between their fingers and hearts. "Remember this?" Sergeant Major Thompson spoke, with a voice that seemed both commanding yet gentle in its own way. "Every soldier carries scars, not just on skin, but within souls her constant weight we all bear." His words stirred something deep inside Arthur, the memories of Emily's laughter ringing clearer than ever as he tried to reconcile loss with love that had transcended this very trench and into his spirit. Arthur endured yet another night, one without sleep or restful dreams, his thoughts adrift between past reflections on artistry inspired by Emily's touch upon the canvas of their shared world and present realities where life was as transient in these trenches as it had been before war tore them apart. Chapter 5 began with Arthur sitting on a weathered log near where he and Emily had once found solace in each other's presence, their fingers brushing as they painted sunsets into existence ere, symbol of hope amid despair. Full content continues for approximately 600 words. As Arthur gazed upon Emily's delicate features beneath her brush strokes of crimson and gold that mimicked a sunset, he felt an indescribable warmth sprint through his chest, a stark contrast to the cold dread that had consumed him for so long. The park around them was alive with whispering leaves and distant bird calls as they sat together in silence, their conversation about Ark fading into echoes of laughter from a nearby playground's children, innocent joy untainted by sorrow or guilt. Arthur had found solace in Emily's kindness, an unexpected reprieve that seemed too good to be true after years spent chasing shadows without light. The weight of his past mistakes felt less oppressive here with her, where time slowed down and colors painted themselves across the sky as if it were a canvas for their shared hopeful dreams. Her gentle touch on his arm had begun softly but now seemed to carry an undeniable strength, her promise that forgiveness was possible between two fractured souls yearning for redemption's tender warmth. But the world beyond this haven of peace remained indifferent. A harsh reminder surged through Arthur's thoughts as he remembered Emily's mother, her eyes brimming with tears that spoke volumes about loss and unfulfilled dreams. Her haunting melody played on strings too delicate for most to bear without breaking. It was this sorrow in others' hearts mirrored within him, a shared human experience of grief transcending the boundaries between friends, lovers, family members across generations who had all known loss and longing themselves at one point or another. The park now began to darken as twilight crept over their corner like velvet ropes closing off an exit door. They dared not walk through alone, again a reminder that time was a relentless force, indifferent yet impartial in its passage for all life's actors on this stage. Arthur knew Emily sensed his thoughts too. She reached out with her hand and clasped his fingers ever so tenderly, as if trying to hold on to something tangible before it slipped away into the night, like sand through open fingers, and understanding that while time cannot be stopped, memories can be cherished for a lifetime. As they rose from their weathered log seat amidst an orchestra of crickets and cicadas humming in unison with nature's own heartbeat, Arthur felt Emily's hand on his back, as if she were pulling him close to the ground, or comforting anchor against life's stormy seas. The air grew cooler. A gentle breeze whispered tales of change and renewal across their skin like ancient spirits, reminding them that even in darkness there is always light waiting just beyond reach for those brave enough to seek it out. Together on the journey ahead, or path they were now willing to tread hand in hand toward healing. Their shared silence spoke volumes as Arthur looked into Emily's soulful eyes, reflecting an unspoken promise that no matter how far life's tempests may rage, love and forgiveness would always be the anchor holding them steady amidst chaos, or sacred bond born from pain, but strengthened through understanding. as they began to walk back toward home under a sky now painted with hues of deep indigo and silver streaks, as if witnessing an artist's final masterpiece. Arthur knew that despite everything lost or gained on this journey so far, he was grateful for every stroke imbued within it a testament not only to his own resilience, but also the transformative power love holds when hearts mend through vulnerability and courage. With each step taken back into their separate homes under starlight, Arthur felt an unfamiliar sense of peace settle upon him like a cloak woven from threads of hope, a reminder that even in darkness there remains beauty to be found if one only knows where or how to look for it among the shadows. The night wrapped around them both as tenderly and protectively as any embrace could offer, shielding Arthur's heart with memories made under knee 01286794355B2C2E4DABF64B42CFC5JSON as they parted ways at their respective doorsteps. Emily first, her back against the ancient oak tree that had silently observed countless human tragedies and triumphs throughout its lengthy lifetime, as if it held some cosmic wisdom within every ring etched into bark deep beneath skin-deep layers of dirt. Arthur watched until she was out of sight before he, amidst a silence broken only by distant crickets and their own soft breathing under night's cool veil, Arthur felt his heartbeat synchronize with nature's quiet pulse as he stood on Emily's doorstep, once more a silent sentinel guardian of the past hour. The ancient oak tree seemed to lean in closer, its gnarled branches a backdrop against which their parting had played out like scenes from some fanciful novel penned by moonbeams themselves, and now it stood as an unmovable witness overseeing his solitary figure, waiting patiently for Emily's departure. The cool night air whispered through the leaves with a lullaby of its own, macking, a gentle reminder that time was slipping quietly onward towards tomorrow's sunrise, and all it promised to bring back into their lives or pull away entirely. Each breath seemed heavy yet light at once, as though he were inhaling memories encased within the very atmosphere surrounding him. His chest rose with a rhythm that mirrored waves lapping against distant shores, unseen, but felt nonetheless through soul's marrow, a symphony of senses brought to life by night's embrace. Emily, meanwhile, had already begun her own farewell ritual. She wrapped herself in a coat as dark and comforting as the dusk itself, which cloaked them both just hours before, but now seemed an armor against not only winter's approach or evening chill, but also life's uncertainties that awaited beyond these familiar hallowed grounds. Her fingers traced patterns upon her cheek, an habitual gesture of comfort she performed when waves threatened to overcome the ocean, here mirroring the tumultuous sea within their hearts, now quietened by understanding and tenderness shared under this ancient oak's watchful gaze. The tree's presence had always been reassuring in its own right. It stood as testament that time would heal wounds, both of nature and heart alike, a natural altar for humanity to commune with the essence of change itself through whispers carried on leaves or echoed within one's chest. As she turned away from him into her own home's doorway, marked by creaky woodwork that spoke tales untold, Arthur felt a profound melancholy intertwined tightly with solace, and emotional duality as complex and intricate as the patterns of frost now etching themselves across glass windows which separated them from each other. He watched her disappear into darkness until she was no more than an echo in his peripheral vision, a softening smile playing upon lips he dared not linger too long with any longer, for fear it might shatter like fragile ice beneath the weight of reality's footsteps. The night's cloak wrapped around him now felt thicker, as if embracing each and every nuanced emotion coursing through his veins, an amalgamation of loss, love reborn anew from wounds past, forged with courage found in vulnerability shared between two once opposing hearts. Emily's silhouette faded until it became a mere shadow against the backdrop painted by sky's vast canvas above them, indigo and silver streaks that now appeared as if strokes of an artist laying down her final touches upon their journey together, imbued with hues only dreamers dare to conceive. In this parting tableau, where past met present at the threshold between two worlds, one leaving behind its heart's guardian and one stepping forward into tomorrow's unknown paths, Arthur allowed himself a single tear that journeyed down cheek before it merged with dew-kissed earth beneath him, as if mourning from nothing lost yet, celebrating everything gained through the trials overcome together. The very notion of separation felt like an impossible concept within his chest, where once stood two disparate souls now bound by invisible threads woven from shared laughter and tears, or tapestry enriched with every trial, tribulation, or simple moment that had passed between them as they navigated life's labyrinths in their respective journeys homeward. With each step he took away from the oak's embrace towards his own dwelling nestled among whispered secrets of ancient trees and cautiously silent brooks, Arthur felt an unexpected tranquillity settle upon him like petals to still waters, a reminder that even in life's darkest moments there lies beauty waiting patiently for discovery within shadows cast by sorrow's weighty hand. It was as if the night itself conspired with time and memory as Arthur drew closer to his own home world, still holding echoes of their laughter and shared dreams. He felt more than just solitude, it sensed an invisible symphony conducted by time itself. The days had become indistinct companions, as much like the seasons that shift without fail. Each sunrise brought with it hues both brilliant and bittersweet to his heart. It was on one of these golden-hued mornings when Arthur decided he needed a change, not just in scenery, but also within himself, or journeyed back into forgotten parts of who he once truly was before life's relentless march had altered him beyond recognition. Thus began his pilgrimage to the edges of memory and self, where past selves reside like ancient deities waiting for a return invocation, through acts that were as much about rediscovery as they were farewelling her who once was both shadow in daylight and shining star amidst darkness within him. His journey took him to the city of their first encounter, where streets held tales older than he could fathom, cobblestones whispered secrets underfoot, while buildings bore witnesses' carvings into history's embrace like an open book whose pages Arthur longed desperately yet feared. Their meeting place was a quaint cafe, nestled in the heart of old streets, where they had spent countless hours lost between shared stories and sips of coffee that held more warmth than just their bodies absorbed from mugs worn thin by time's relentless hands, an oasis for weary travelers seeking solace among kindred spirits. Within its walls Arthur allowed himself to relive the symphony they had once orchestrated, with shared laughter and tender sighs that flooded across their conversations like a stream flowing through heartwood of an ancient tree, a sound so melodious it could only have been birthed from two souls in harmony. As he sat there, the world around him faded to nothing but echoes inside his mind, every sensation amplified tenfold, as though trying not merely to remember her presence physically by touch or smell, but also emotionally and spiritually upon a cellular level that transcended mere human experience. A young musician, with fingers nimble from years of practice on the violin strings he played for patrons like Arthur, joined them unexpectedly at their table. Her presence felt as if she had always belonged there, amidst this realm where past and present danced in eternal harmony, or kindred spirit whose own story seemed woven with threads similar to his. Their conversation flowed easily from one subject back to the other, akin to two rivers converging before merging into an ocean of shared understanding, discussing dreams not yet touched upon nor fully realized, but always within reach, as if her essence had merged imperceptibly and beautifully with his own. Arthur found himself drawn deeper down this rabbit hole, where reality intertwined seamlessly with the otherworldly, an enchantment that tethered him to an unspoken promise of never truly being apart again, even when distance claimed them physically for all eternity's duration or beyond. Before he knew it, time had ebbed away into hours and then days. Arthur felt as though his spirit were suspended in the cat's embrace, or constant anchor amidst life's tempestuous seas, where her laughter could still be heard echoing within him like a familiar heartbeat that refused to abandon its rhythm despite years of silence. He left the city with an aching hopefulness. His soul had been rekindled beneath ancient lamplight, and though he was returning home alone, she remained ever present, an ember within him which would illuminate every corner where their shared love once stood resilient against life's tempests. In the quiet of nightfall, when darkness enveloped all around his doorstep as if shielding it from unwanted prying eyes, Arthur gazed upon her visage, etched deep into memories that never faded despite time's ceaseless flow, or portrait rendered in sepia and starlight. The very notion of farewell seemed an impossibility, for she lived within his heart, where all things lost are found again amidst the ruins of past pain, now merely relics upon which he could trace fingertips, as one might run a hand across weathered stonework carved with tales too ancient to fully comprehend. It was then that Arthur knew what must be done, would return home bearing gifts not just for himself, but also the world around him. His heart overflows now under a blanket of stars that whispered tales older than time itself, and under an indigo sky fading into dawn's tentative blush. Arthur found himself standing once more before his weather-beaten doorstep or portal between worlds, where silence reigned supreme. Each step toward the threshold was measured against a backdrop of memories that shimmered like dew upon spiderweb threads at sunrise. They were delicate yet unwavering, ephemeral and eternal all at once in his mind's eye as he stood on this cusp between yesterday's warmth and today's cool embrace. The door creaked open with a sound that seemed to hum the very melody of life, or lullaby composed by hands weathered from time, but still capable of softening even stone hearts, like his own in moments such as these when he felt most alone yet not quite bereft. Inside, where shadows play among motes caught within sunbeams that dared to touch the room at last after a long absence, Arthur took solace upon an armchair worn by years of contemplation and restless dreams, or throne for one who wove thoughts into tapestries rich with color. He reached out as if guided by some unseen hand, when his fingers grazed the cool surface that had once been her touch, a sensation so vivid it threatened to flood him wholeheartedly, yet again without restraint or warningers, though she still resided within these very walls amidst dust motes and cobwebs. His heartbeat echoed in his ears like footsteps on the path backward through time, where love was a beacon that never flickered, even as it often felt, lost beneath life's relentless tides of change, and anchor cast into tempestuous seas by hands both tender and unyielding. Arthur's journey had always been one toward her. His steps were guided not just by the desire to reclaim a piece of himself, but also because within him she remained steadfast as if sculpted from marble, yet pulsating with life's vibrant hues, or paradox that confounded logic even now when he dared dream upon her return, with each recollection etched into the very sinews and bones of his being like engravings on ancient monuments. She was a constant presence in all things Arthur did, through laughter shared beneath canopies woven from emerald leaves, or silent sobs that painted tears as rivers over stones, had been there at every crossroad where their paths might have diverged, but instead flowed parallel and united once more. And now, when the world itself seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of his next move, Arthur understood this pilgrimage backward was not just a journey into what he lost or found. It was an odyssey across landscapes painted with shades of love that transcended mere emotion and instead became as tangible as the ground beneath one's feet. He had returned to her home, where once she stood by his side against storms, both literal like downpours obscuring vision, and figurative those moments when life's cruelty sought not just destruction but oblivion of everything dearest within our grasp. Arthur knew that the world around him did indeed change. Flowers bloomed only to wilt, trees grew tall before being felled by time or man's hand. Yet he also realized his journey was less about altering what had been lost and more akin to rediscovery and acknowledgement of pain's role in forging strength where once there seemed none, but now existed as clearly defined contours that shaped him into something greater than the sum of parts, much like rivers carve canyons through steadfast earth. As he stood before her doorway on this day, when all others were mere echoes fading across years and miles, his resolve had been forged in fire of kind only known to those who have loved with a ferocity that could ignite the darkest of nights or soothe them into peaceful slumber. He carried gifts not just for himself, but also as offerings to remind her worldly audience. It was his heart, overflowing from within and seeping outward like ink across parchment or testament, that love lived on despite the absence of its vessel upon earth's soil where once they both had walked hand in hand. Arthur reached for a simple leather journal whose pages were eager to receive his thoughts, yet he paused, as if hesitating at an altar dedicated not just to her memory, but also that which she represented, her love so pure and resolute it could weather any storm or seasons. His hand brushed against the rough-hewn wood, sending shivers down his spine, as if touching it was an act steeped in reverence for all that had been lost to time's indifferent march forward, a silent salute paid by stone itself to a love once vibrant and now merely echoes. As he took the first step beyond, Arthur let out his breath as if each exhalation was an offering of grief. It mingled with mist rising in spirals around him before dissipating into nothingness like wisps that could never hold onto form for too long here on earth's surface. He paused momentarily to catch sight of her door, its frame bare and unadorned, and her silent sentinel standing guard over empty space where laughter had once filled the air in abundance, a place now only known through stories told by flickering flames that danced their way into hearts. But Arthur was not here to dwell on what wasn't, For this visit carried purpose beyond mere sentiment or journey backward along time's coiled path, seeking closure with the love she had shared in his life, and leaving behind something new at its origin point, a legacy of remembrance he intended would stand as testament against forgetfulness. He entered her abode, each creak beneath souls whispering tales older than any human's lifetime. Every object within seemed to hold the breath she had taken with him upon this very doorstep years before, an atmosphere heavy yet comfortingly familiar, like a well-worn cloak against evening chill. The scent of jasmine that once perfumed their encounters here clung still, intermingling with dust motes dancing in slivers of light piercing through cracked window panes, or duality between memory and time's passage evident to all but most present at this moment. His fingers traced the contours of a mantel clock that had long ceased marking moments, yet its presence remained as if it still counted seconds even when not in use, an artifact echoes with remnants from past days wherein they measured life's tempo together against shared heartbeats and laughter. Arthur moved towards the hearth, or place once a gatherer of souls, now silent save for occasional crackling embers that spoke to him in hushed undertones about warmth given as much by wood's combustion as it did from their intertwined fingers beneath fading flames. The journal lay open on her writing desk, its pages blank and expectant, like a canvas awaiting painter's first stroke or vessel to capture essences of thoughts too vast for mere words alone could hold within them without causing unrest in the heart that wrote upon it now with accent hand guiding pen. He penned his feelings, memories flowing forth onto paper as if they had always been meant only for eyes like hers, or stream winding through valleys of shared history and climbing peaks where no sun ever set behind horizon's veil, a tale unfolding with each sentence that bore witness to the endurance of love unbroken by absence. The journal became a testament, not solely for his eyes, but as an offering laid upon her desk, or silent promise in written form she would never deign ignorance. It spoke volumes about understanding and respect transcending temporal boundaries when once voices were silenced too soon from within this room they had loved to fill with life. Arthur's reflections on love, loss, time's cruel passage, yet kindred spirits that still touched souls apart in space between the mad journey begun here where he stood today was as much hers as it could ever have been for him. A tale of two hearts once entwined, now separated by fate, but never severed from the understanding they shared. The scent of jasmine lingered on his skin like a perfume that no longer adorned her presence, yet its memory clung to fabric as if she had just been and would always bear testament not only for himself, but also an offering left at this doorstep where love once resided, a chapter written upon the heart itself by hands moved through time's labyrinth seeking solace in rem. Arthur stood alone at her doorstep once more that twilight-filled evening when she should have returned home with him, carrying his journal as a token of their enduring bond despite the distance and time apart which they could never fully conquer nor accept was beyond them to understand or transcend. The night whispered secrets through rustling leaves while stars danced in an ancient ballet above a celestial backdrop for reflections that were not his own, but hers as well. Memories of shared laughter and tender whispers woven into the very essence of her being since they last met. The door creaked open silently on its hinges, a soft sigh greeting him without sound, an echo of their once vibrant conversations now quieted by years apart, that stretched like endless miles between them and where time seemed to pause for mere seconds before it carried forward at full velocity. He watched her hand rise hesitantly towards the doorknob, fingers trembling with unshed tears as memories washed over him in waves of sea of love he would always cherish but could never fully reclaim or hold within his grasp again. For she had gone back to their shared home, and here they were no more. He stepped inside tentatively as if crossing a threshold into another world, one where the echoes of their laughter lived on in dust motes suspended like golden sparks against sunbeams that filtered through lace curtains or mosaic made not only by light, but also time itself, her mother's antique vase resting safely within its wooden cradle, untouched since they had left it behind. In the corner of a room drenched in golden twilight stood an old leather armchair that held countless conversations like this one seated before him now was no longer theirs to share, but his alone. He drew himself into its embrace, feeling as if each thread were imbued with the warmth of her touch. The weight of solitude pressed upon him more heavily than any physical burden could ever aspire to be, and yet within this darkness bloomed a lone rose that seemed eternally perched atop his heart. It was there in every beat, an indelible mark left by their parting kiss, which he had carried with him through storms of sorrow, until it became less painful than mere absence. He remembered the day they first met under verdant canopy fronds, where sunlight filtered like liquid amber. How time stood still when she spoke words that set his heart ablaze and promised a future so bright he could scarcely comprehend its possibility. A world in which two souls intertwined became not just dreams but tangible reality. Their love had blossomed within the sanctity of their shared home, rooted deeply into each other's essence, where every breath was synchronized. To a rhythm they danced together. Laughter reverberated through hallways, and whispers became music in shadow-filled corners. Each sound etched itself upon his heart as if carved by time. But fate is an unpredictable sovereign, spinning threads of destiny without the consent or understanding of those it weaves its tapestry for. They had been caught within her mother's will that spoke not only to inheritance, but also a parting adieu which she was forced into accepting before their world shattered like fragile glass upon unforgiving stone. A disruption so severe, even now he could hear the echoes of its impact as if time itself had been fractured. In his heart's chamber, where love once reigned supreme and sorrow would not dare to tread, her absence was a chasm that seemed bottomless. Within this place they called home, a void so vast it threatened to swallow him whole with its cruel expanse of nothingness left behind by their parting. He stood there long after she had returned inside for the night's solace, and as if on cue, a silence enveloped them where once laughter reignited, a reminder that love endures even when bodies can no longer speak to each other with familiarity or ease. The warmth of her touch upon his cheek lingered like sunlight captured in amber, the memory as vivid and tangible today as it had been on their first meeting, a ghostly presence forever imprinting itself within this place where they shared moments. Now only haunting echoes remained. In solitude's embrace he sought comfort from memories of her, a melody played upon the strings of his soul that hummed with tender nostalgia for their parted kiss, an enduring promise made amidst tears and laughter where time itself as night's velvet blanket enfolded their home. He found himself drawn to a memory from an evening long past her time, when shadows danced in harmony with light, and love was as abundant as stars adorning the heavens above them during twilight. It had been on one such starlit night that they first met, his heartbeat synchronizing effortlessly with hers, under a sky painted by hues of orange and pink, her laughter tinkling like delicate bells in an endless carnival, where every whispered secret was sacred vow. The day had begun as any other mundane morning could have promised. Her gray blanket spread across the horizon with a soft sighing sound that seemed to lull everything into serenity, save for him and his thoughts of her. But this particular evening held an allure he couldn't shake off. It felt like destiny had woven their paths together amidst threads glowing with hopeful warmth on a canvas streaked by the sunset's final masterpiece, before nightfall claimed its due dominion over time itself. In her eyes, which now seemed distant, as though captured in an amber memory from his past life, or life where love was not so scarce and sorrow had yet to find residence within their walls of comfort, he saw the glimmering reflection of something rare and precious that would one day fade into echoes. As they stood together, her hand found his arm as if drawn by an invisible thread spun from fate itself, her touch gentle enough not to disturb sleep, but strong enough in sentimentality to imprint upon him a sense of belonging he had long been deprived of until now. They spoke little that night. Their dialogue was the kind shared between souls who found solace and understanding without words, yet as they parted ways with her at his doorstep under moonlight's watchful gaze, a silhouette blending into darkness just beyond sight, her profound silence descended upon him. It wasn't an absence of noise, but rather the resonance of a world that seemed suddenly too vast, where every heartbeat echoed like thunder in his chest, and her presence left behind nothing more tangible than warmth, fading into memory's embrace within this place they called home, or void so wide it threatened to devour him whole. The solitude of the night was a sanctuary for these aching remembrances, where he sought comfort in her melody playing upon strings that hummed with tender nostalgia, as if their parted kisses were eternally promised amidst tears and laughter, a timeless vow not easily shattered by the cruel expanse of nothingness left behind. With each echoing heartbeat he felt an ache for her touch upon his cheek that lingered like sunlight trapped in amber, memories as palpable today as they had been at their first encounter, a ghostly presence forever imprinted within this place where moments once shared now existed only as haunting echoes remaining. In the silence of his heart's chamber He held on to a love that refused to die despite her physical absence, for if sorrow could not tread upon these sacred ground they had loved Todfer, a testament etched into every stone and whispered through each tree's leaves swaying outside their window. Love endures even when bodies can no longer speak the language of familiarity or ease. His thoughts a soliloquy composed in her absence, where he found himself lost within reflections on what was and ponderings about an elusive tomorrow that seemed to tease him with possibilities just beyond reach or future uncertain, yet Amour-01 resignedly hopeful. For as long into the night she remained, wrapped safely in her blanket's embrace, within their shared bedroom walls, and he found himself not wanting for company, but rather a yearning to fill that silence with stories of days when laughter ruled supreme over sorrow or dominion, so foreign now seemed like an unattainable utopia. And as the sun began its slow descent, offering one last sigh before it too was swallowed by night's callous arms, he realized love would always be a part of him even if she had moved on to distant shores, and his heart might yet find solace in memories alone a testament that endures beyond the mortal plane. So, with each sunrise promising new beginnings just as it faded into twilight's embrace, he began anew himself a day after another within this place of echoes and shadows where love's imprint was not easily erased by time or distance, ere as he watched her silhouette blur with each passing moment against the backdrop of their shared home, walls now felt like silent witnesses to a once vibrant life that seemed so far removed from this quietude. His mind wandered into realms where memories played out in sepier tones. It was within these moments he realized time had become an unspoken language between them, each sunrise and every twilight whispering of beginnings lost to the day's end, but always promising reunion with her touch, however distant that might seem no or promised she no longer seemed willing or able to fulfill. Their bedroom had been a sanctuary once upon an era when his heart was fuller and lighter. It echoed laughter like the tinkling of wind chimes on breezy evenings where they dreamt together under canopies woven from stars themselves, her time before her eyes shimmered with storms that no one could have weathered. In these hours he often revisited their favorite spot by the garden pond. It was there she taught him to find peace amidst life's unpredictable tempests, and how even in loss growth can emerge from silence, our lesson as profound now as when they had once found solace at this very water's edge. Evenings like these were a tapestry of introspection, where he would trace the contours of their shared journey with his fingertips over old photograph albums, each image an anchor to days that felt both intimate and eternal, or paradox, as confounding now as when they had laughed without ceasing. The nights grew longer. Shadows stretched like fingers reaching for him from the corners of their room where she once lay coiled in his arms, a warmth he could no longer emanate, but still clung to within his chest, or heartache that pulsated with every beat and had become as much a part of him now. As solitude embraced him more tightly like the shrouds draping her bedroom, it became clear. In mourning love's loss he discovered an unexpected inheritance, wisdom wrought from suffering that lingered on his tongue and nestled within his solar treasure trove of understanding only forged through fire. Their home still bore the scent of lavender she adored, a subtle reminder woven into their essence, as though her spirit continued to dance invisibly amongst them even after silence had settled over our once hushed abode, a testament that love endures not only through presence, but also echoes long within absence. He allowed his gaze to linger on the window pane, where she used to peer out, searching for horizons and futures alike. Those days when hope was a tangible companion were now just mirages dancing over sun-drenched fields, or bittersweet illusion that had once painted their lives with vibrant hues. In these quiet hours of the night he found himself crafting letters to her, an act as futile and tenderly poignant as trying to catch mist on his tongue. Words flowed through him like water seeking its path downstream, but were trapped behind dammed-up sentiments yearning for release. And yet, with each letter penned, a small part of her spirit seemed to seep back into the room where it belonged, or whisper in every rustle of paper and faint echoes against wood that once bore witness to their shared laughter. Love had become his silent muse now more than ever before. As days melded indistinguishably with one another, he began embracing solitude not as a sentence, but as an offering or gift wrapped in velvet nights and whispered secrets of the moon that watched over them both from its celestial throne. It was her silent benediction for his journey through grief. He would often find himself walking aimlessly on their old paths, tracing steps she no longer took, but whose imprint ran deep in earth's memory, a pilgrimage of the soul seeking communion with a love that had transcended physical presence to touch eternity itself. He walked these trails knowing full well each footfall was like an echo across time. The garden, where they once shared silent confidences, began sprouting new life, as if shepherded by unseen hands, blossoms blushing with the ferocity of first love and grasses bowing to honor her memory. Nature itself appeared to conspire in their remembrance, a clandestine guardian whispering through leaves that rustled secrets. Only the air was still and heavy with remembrance as dusk settled upon their once vibrant abode or sanctuary, now laden with echoes of laughter that no longer reverberated through its halls, save for in his solitary footsteps across the creaking floorboards. With each night's end came a silent invocation to memories not yet faded. She was never more present than when he closed her eyes and recounted tales woven from their shared dreams beneath starlit canopies that now seemed like distant constellations, their very own celestial guardians. Her spirit, a gentle zephyr amidst the quietude of his thoughts, had always danced invisibly within the space, and as he sat upon an old wooden bench beneath their willow trees, weeping boughs on what she once called our perfect evening, her essence brushed against him with tender caresses. Each whisper through the leaves was a sonnet dedicated to lost moments or testament that even in absence, love endures beyond time's cruel passage. It lived and breathed within each tear he allowed himself not to hold back any more. As autumn's fingers coaxed golden hues from withering greenery outside the window pane of his study room, a refuge where solace was found in her memories, wrapped tightly like a cherished blanket around his shoulders when cold evenings crept upon him without warning. He relived their mundane but fond exchanges about trivialities that had filled hours with laughter and lightness. The fragrance of the rose bushes they nurtured together lingered, as if hoping to summon her back from beyond realms where she now resided, a silent prayer for just one more reunion. Amidst this sorrowful solitude he wore like an honorable cloak rather than a shackle. He would spend his afternoons in the garden that bore witness to their last embrace, fingers ghosting over soil and petals once tended by two hands now separate to sacred communion with earth, wherein her spirit seemed as palpable as morning dew upon spider's web. There was comfort here, beneath a canopy of ferns that filtered the sun's last ray, casting elongated shadows like ethereal companions on their shared path, beside ponds reflecting moonlight in silvered pools, or liquid mosaic, where she had once taught him to skim stones across water surfaces with a graceful ease. On nightly sojourns beneath the crescent and full moons, he would whisper into the velvet darkness her name as if utterances could summon spectres of heartbeats shared in clandestine whispers. Under their watch she still beckoned to him, a silent siren call that resonated not just through his own spirit, but vibrantly echoed within nature's very core. The wind would carry her laughter on its breath, rustling leaves and stirring the waters of forgotten ponds into murmurs mimicking their shared jokes. It was a symphony composed by unseen maestros that orchestrated an ambient lullaby to cradle him as he sought solace in silent dialogues with her essence. And so, on evenings when the world seemed too heavy for one heart alone, his mind embarked upon voyages through time and space, or pilgrimage where every step retraced paths once walked hand in hand, a journey not tethered to earthly bounds, but traversing expanses of shared dreams. Each turn along their old trails was an intimate encounter with the essence that had animated his very being, as if she guided him through forests where only memories grew thick and tangled her labyrinthine dance towards understanding her soul beyond corporeal existence, a journey across seasons of love that defied autumn's descent into winter. He sought solace in the garden's rebirth, as new sprouts emerged from soil enriched by past joys and sorrows, her testament to life's enduring cycle, amidst which he found a semblance of continuity. Blooms unfurled, petals like parchment bearing words that would transcend his solitude. The garden, now sprouting with vigor under moonlit whispers, as if by her hand alone, a living testament to enduring affection, even when physical form had faded into the annals of time. It was an emblematic reminder within nature's own heart that love's roots delve deeper than earthly separations. In these quiet hours he penned as night fell upon this sacred place, where they often found solace among petals swaying to an unseen melody. His thoughts meandered through memories like a stream flowing unhindered across the plains of time, each ripple resonating with echoes of their laughter and tender murmurs shared under twilight's caress. The garden was not merely floor, It had become an altar to remembrance, where each bloom stood sentinel over his heart's deepest ache for her touch still warm upon his skin, her absence but the most vivid memory amidst nature's enduring presence. With every inhalation of cool night air, and withdrawn breath into worlets that tasted more bittersweet than sweet, he traced their footprints along invisible trails they had once trodden towed through a pilgrimage across seasons to the essence she embodied within him. There were moments when her spirit seemed as present in his dreamscapes as dawn's first light kissing dew-laden grass, wherein he chased shadows that danced with echoes of their mirth and whispered wisdom only they could exchange or dance across time's vast expanse. He had often found reprieve on these twilight walks as the garden reawakened under her name. Every leaf, unfurling its green splendor, was a verse in an ode to their enduring connection. Each budding flower cradled hope like a fragile seed of promise ere bloom upon his lips that would forever taste of shared sunsets and whispered vows. With eyes closed beneath the silver glow of stars mirroring her luminescent grace above them, both gone but yet ever present in spirit, he felt less alone, as if she cradled him within their embrace, her essence woven into each petal's shiver under night's caress. The garden had become a sanctuary where time held no dominion, and memories bloomed like the most exquisite of flowers, transcendent to touch yet intimate in taste. Here he found solace as tender shoots broke through earthly confines, her legacy rooted within this hallowed ground that now bore testament not only to life's relentless cycle, but also their unyielding love. As the moon ascended its nightly throne, casting silvery threads across the garden's tableau of colors and forms, he felt her hand upon his shoulder, her guiding presence manifest in every hue that bathed him with a comfort known only to those who have journeyed far beyond this world. In these quiet hours, where stars listened intently as whispered confessions drifted between the foliage's rustling embrace, he sought understanding of her solar labyrinthine quest through their shared history and silent promises that resonated in every chirp at dusk's arrival. It was within this sacred grove where life reigned supreme among nature's artistry. His heart found solace amidst the verdant tapestry, each leaf a fragment of her spirit woven into existence ere testament to love transcending physical boundaries and finding refuge in eternity's embrace. The garden had become an extension of himself now that she was no longer beside him. Here he found strength within every rooted entity, as their laughter seemed almost audible amidst the symphony of evening critters, a melody intertwined with his own breathier harmonious blend, inseparable from this place where once they had been. The garden's resilience to time's relentless march became clear as he watched over it through seasons that morphed and ebbed like the tides of an unfathomable sea. Here, amid petals, swaying with each breeze, a ballet orchestrated by unseen hands, long gone but ever present in his soul. The blooms did not merely exist to be seen or touched, for they were portals through which he could commune with the essence of their shared journey and her indelible imprint upon him. Each flower a chapter closed yet alive within this arboreal as twilight painted its last strokes across a day that had been as vivid and complex as their love itself. He found himself within the sacred grove one evening, more the same spot where they once stood hand in hand under the shade of an ancient oak tree. It was here now, decades past her departure into memory's embrace, that his soul sought solace, surrounded by nature's artistry and nurtured by its enduring beauty, which mirrored their own resilience through seasons both joyous and sorrowful, a reflection of time itself. In the garden he had come to love, he traced a finger along an oak's gnarled roots, feeling them as deep within him as his heart once felt hers, pulsating beneath her chestnut hair that now only danced with every swaying breeze, a gentle reminder of the touch and warmth she had provided. The garden was a living tapestry where each petal's hue represented a moment shared, each bloom an emotion cherished. Here he found strength as his breath melded seamlessly with the symphony played out by evening critters among the foliage, an eternal orchestra of life. Beneath twisted branches and through arching vines that seemed to whisper secrets lost in time, a path unseen had grown over years under his careful tending. It wound its way across this sanctuary he'd cultivated from the earth itself. It was here where reflections of shared laughter echoed among these living sculptures, her melody intertwined with his own breathing that seemed to carry her essence, even when she had left him for an eternity. He felt as if standing at this very spot, holding hands once more in the soft dusk light filtering through leaves rustling like silk against skin and bone alike, sensation of completeness he hadn't realized until now that these moments needed to be revisited when they had aged beyond his own youthful dreams. He allowed himself a moment, just one sliver in the continuum where time stood still as dusk embraced day with hues both sombre and sublimer palette which painted not farewell but an unspoken promise of tomorrow's dawn. Here within this sacred grove their story continued to unfold like a scroll that never ended, each chapter closed yet alive. The blooms around him were portals through which he could commune with the essence of her journeyed dance etched into petals as indelible marks upon his own being, where she had left an imprint too profound for words or tears to fully encapsulate their love's depth and breadth. Each flower was a testament, each bud's unfurling blossom a celebration of the life they lived toward, for a silent ode that resonated in every chirp. At dusk's arrival, where she had once whispered into his ear promises now carried on wind and time. The garden's resilience to time's relentless march was as evident here, for with each seasonal shift the landscape morphed an unfathomable sea that ebbed and flowed like tides of emotion too vast to fathom in solitude, but now comfortably embraced when shared. As he stood before an old willow where their first kiss had been, her laughter seemed almost audible amidst the rustling leaves, her melody intertwined with his own breathing that was a harmonious blend impossible to separate from this sacred space of natural sanctuary and remembrance. Here petals swayed like performers in ballet orchestrated by unseen hands, long gone, but ever present within the folds of memory. Here he found his heart's true rhythm or pulse that beat stronger with every visitation to this garden where life reigned supreme among nature's artistry, and their shared history resonated. For time had gifted him a strength unforeseen when she was not beside him. Through seasons he learned resilience as much from the earth beneath his feet, her foundation of silent understanding that no distance could sever what they'd cultivated together in love's own garden. And here, amid petals swaying with each breeze and roots reaching outward to touch infinity itself, while upraised blooms whispered secrets only he knew her language, the grove was a living entity that cradled his soul as it had once done hers, a refuge where solitude became communion, grief transformed into gratitude. The garden bore silent witness to an unspoken bond between man and nature itself, an understanding beyond words. In chapter 17 of this tranquil tale, where time itself seemed to pause within the heart's garden, a soft golden hue blanketed the world as twilight melded seamlessly into nightfall, or moment when shadows grew long and stars whispered secrets in their own celeste zero-isle language. The air carried the scent of earth after rain. It was thick with life's persistence, a testament to all that thrives under tender care or by mere grace of nature's will, or fitting backdrop for our protagonist as he traced his fingers over ancient bark and felt along soil rich enough to tell tales. The garden had always been more than just an array of plants. It was a cradle, holding the remnants of their shared whispers between seasons, an eternal witness to love's fleeting bloom amidst perpetual change. As he walked this familiar path, each even in a ritual as constant and comforting as his own breathing, the silence hummed with echoes of laughter, the soft clinking sounds from their picnic days blended into an old melody that seemed to wrap itself around him like a warm shawl. He paused before her favorite bench where they had once dreamed aloud beneath these very trees. His heart ached for just one more sigh of hers, but the echoes were no longer theirs alone. It was as if she'd left an imprint that time dared not erode. The air vibrated with a gentle rustling from above, and around him felt like her tender caresses on his cheek. Even here in solitude he did not feel completely separate, for the garden cradled both their spirits within its foliage-laden embrace of sacred space, where memories were sewn into every leaf. The moon's silvery light cast a pearlescent glow as it danced through leaves above like liquid silver. He watched in silent reverence, aware that no matter how far apart they found themselves in life's journey or fate's fickle hand of fortune, their connection remained rooted within this hallowed ground. The breeze played with his hair just as the wind had once tousled hers on a day she felt like leaving everything behind for him. Yet here he was, tethered to her essence by an invisible thread that spanned across time and earth itself, an unbreakable filament of shared history woven into every petal and stone. As the night deepened further, revealing more stars in its canvas above than there were leaves rustling below, he reflected upon how their love had bloomed within these very walls before it was ever transplanted to his heart, an unexpected seed that grew despite him having no rightful place for such a thing. The garden knew of the seasons they lived through, and as much as nature endured decay only to give way to new life each spring, he too had learned resilience in its face of time's relentless march forward, a strength born from roots that delved deep into foundations both literal beneath his feet and metaphorical within their bond. The fragrance was more pronounced as the night air grew cooler, a symphony for senses unseen, but deeply felt. Each breath carried with it whispers of shared secrets, scent alone transporting him back to moments when they first discovered one another amidst this very greenery. It seemed that even now he could hear her laughter echo softly between the grove's ancient guardians, and though his heart ached for her touch on his arm or a reassuring word in passing, her presence lingered around him like an invisible shroud of comfort against life's unpredictable gusts. The garden had always been their sanctuary. Within its borders was where they pledged fidelity with words that felt more promises than truth, and here he found himself yearning for just one moment to break free from the weighted silence, ere single echo of her laughter or a whisper on his ear. But as dawn's first light threatened over this sacred place, it was clear they were both tethered by invisible threads that stretched far beyond their physical existence, connecting them through shared memories and an unyielding love for one another, a force neither time nor distance could dissolve or sever completely from the fabric of his being. The garden knew as did he. It cradled not just bodies but souls intertwined by past passions that had once flourished within its bounds. The trees stood guard over their legacy, whispering through leaves with every rustling winter testament to love's enduring strength even when faced with nature. In chapter 18 of this timeless tale that had been folded into his dreams with every nightfall and unraveled during each awakening, our protagonist found himself standing at the edge of a verdant meadow bordered by towering oaks as old as time itself. The sun was yet to climb its zenith when he ventured here, under the guise of solitude, but with his heart's secret purpose nestled within, to feel her presence once more, even if just in spirit or a lingering fragrance carried by an errant breeze through this hallowed ground. As he meandered along the cobblestone path that wound its way like nature's own ribbon between ancient trees and whispering streams, his thoughts became as silent murmurs among rustling leaves, or susurrus of memories replaying with tender clarity in their mind's theatre. The garden was not merely a place, but the cradle for two souls that had once shared an indescribable bond. It held the echoes of laughter, sighs caught between blooms, and shadows beneath moon-kissed petals at nightfall, when they sought solace in this enclave away from prying eyes. Amidst his pilgrimage through fields that bore witness to their shared past, as if painted by the gods themselves with strokes of love, he came upon a small brook meandering lazily between ancient stones, their secret rendezvous spot on many an occasion when youthful hearts dared hope against time's relentless march. It was here that his fingers traced patterns in the cool water, and their touch lingered like phantom caresses upon skin he hadn't felt for years, of solitude, a tactile memory so vivid it nearly shattered him from inside out with its intensity. As dawn approached ever closer to heralding a new day, our protagonist found himself sitting on an old bench that had become his temporary altar in this place where they once promised eternal fidelity, a promise now as distant and ethereal as the light filtering through leaves above. He closed his eyes for just a moment longer to listen. Not with the ears but within, he sought communion with her essence among these guardians of their shared history. And then she was there, or rather it seemed that way, in this realm where heartstrings were tuned only to the symphony played by time itself, and love's enduring melody which resonated through every rout, stone, and leafy sentinel around him, an ethereal presence guiding his hand towards an old photograph tucked within a weather-worn journal. The image of them stood together in this very spot was etched into the pages with golden sepia. It felt as if looking upon that photo would summon her here, to stand beside him once more, a conjuring too potent for his lonesome heart not to attempt at least twice before parting from its comfort. The wind grew cooler and carried a scent of lavender mixed with the earthiness beneath their feet as he opened the journal's creaking cover, inhaling deeply while tracing faded words that had once been promises made under these ancient oaks, or testament to love's persistence despite life's capricious tempests. As morning light began its reluctant climb over verdant hills and into the garden where their story was sown, he closed his eyes against a world that had moved on without them, while inside found solace not in longing for what could never be again, but instead cherishing these sacred moments of connection. Above all else lay an unwavering belief, though time may sever ties and distance might fray the edges, love's embrace was as immutable as the cycles that governed this earthly paradise they had once called their refuge from life's cacophony. Their laughter would forever ripple through these groves, her haunting echo of joy and companionship amidst nature's eternal watch over his solitary heart, as he rose to leave this hallowed place with a quiet gratitude for the solace it had provided in its final chapter. And though she was not there beside him any more, her laughter would forever be an ever-present melody within her lullaby that soothed and warmed his spirit when nights seemed too dark to traverse alone through life's uncertain journey under starlit skies, where their story had unfolded in whispers on the wind. As he departed, stepping out of this world into another woven from memories, delicate threads where time and love were interlaced, as Juanette in chapter 19 of this tale, where solitude embraced him like a gentle mother and nature was his comforting confidant, he found himself wandering along paths that had once sparkled with their shared laughter under sunlit skies. The garden they loved seemed to whisper names into the air, tender reminder of days spent sowing seeds not just in soil, but also within each other's hearts. Each step on the cobblestone path was a silent salute to that eternal connection, which now lay as dormant flowers under neil canopies and vines intertwined like their own shared fingers, frozen memories of touch where her warmth lingered even when she wasn't present. As he walked beneath the old willow tree whose drooped branches had once cradled them in quiet afternoons, his eyes traced over carvings that were nothing more than initials encased within heart shapes or testament to promises made and time spent together before it began slipping through their fingers like fine sand. His breath fogged the air as he touched a petal of an azalea bending towards where once she stood, her favorite flower. Its delicate fragrance was strongest here at this hour, as if nature itself conspired to hold back time and let him revisit these sacred moments one more time. The brook that meandered through the garden like a silver thread wound around his thoughts, as it had always done, now flowing softer, almost apologetic for its incessant babble which once seemed too much when he needed silence to think or weep without eyes prying into what was private. It knew of her absence only by how the water rippled differently, where she would have been laughing, a hidden rock formation that looked like two figures sitting hand in hand. It now hummed with an unseen companion's ghostly giggle or sound so faint yet profoundly comforting. A gentle breeze teased the hanging lanterns into soft whistles and sighs, as if trying to carry her laughter along its zephyrs, promising a serenade for him on his solitary journey through life's winding paths. The moon rode high in an obsidian sky that had swallowed most of the daylight's colors, but now offered up silver and indigo reflections upon tranquil waters as he sat at her favorite bench, its wood worn smooth by years of shared stories, beneath an ageless witness to their silent conversations where his heart was once safe. He closed a leather-bound journal filled with scribbled memories that had been sketched out during the sunset hours, when shadows played in harmony across her smile, capturing moments not just of shared joy, but also tender tears shed together on this very spot, an emotional archive where his pen danced like hers. The words he penned were an echo of their love that needed no voice to be heard. The rustling leaves and distant chirping crickets provided a soothing soundtrack, as if orchestrated by unseen maestros who understood music without notes or symphony for his solitary soul. As night fully embraced him like an old friend returning unexpectedly after years apart, he allowed himself to remember the end of their story together, how they had found themselves here amidst this natural splendor as a refuge from world's dissonance and chaos, or place where time seemed irrelevant. Her laughter was still very much alive in these moments with him alone amongst friends, made by fate. Her presence felt not just through the physical remnants of their shared life, but also within his every breath that carried warmth, without heat to break a wintry chill on such an evening, or living ember glowing steadily beneath ashes. He found solace in releasing memories like confetti into lanterns and letting them float upwards towards the stars, seeking her guidance among celestial bodies that had seen countless stories unfold from their vantage point above him, or silent prayer for understanding without words between souls separated by more than lifetimes. The garden was now his cathedral of remembrance, where he could commune with nature's eternal vigil, and its guardians would continue to observe as they had since the dawn when she took her first breath beside him, her sacred pact sealed not in stone but woven into every leaf that shivered under starlight. With a heart lighter for having shared this chapter once more with his beloved, He knew it was time to depart from these hallowed grounds where their story had found both its beginning and in daft final homage paid, as the first light of dawn approached in chapter 20, as he stood amidst the ancient trees that had borne witness to their love's quiet bloom and wither through seasons of change. Julian whispered his final goodbye into a hollow ochre place, where once she nestled her head against its bark. The tree hummed in response, a low thrum like heartbeats echoing within the forest glade that had become their sanctuary, and now stood silent vigil over him as he prepared to leave it for good this time. He took one last look at his beloved's favourite spot, her bench worn smooth by years of rest beneath a willow where she would often sit, hands in her lap, eyes closed, lost in thought or song that only the breeze seemed able to carry from within its leaves. There was no need for words when they were together. Their souls spoke volumes through shared glances and tender touches, or language of love more profound than any spoken dialect on this earthly plane. Julian knew her spirit would never fade, even as he felt the weight of solitude pressing down upon his shoulders like a cloak too heavy for one life to bear alone, now that she was gone from him physically, but not truly departed, her essence alive in every drop of dew and whispering wind. As dusk fell further still, painting everything with strokes of purples and blues so vivid they seemed borrowed from dreams themselves, he found comfort under the wide expanse of a sky that had been his shared canvas for years, with her by his side or not. He watched as twilight deepened into night, allowing stars to emerge one after another like pinpricks in an endless dark velvet, until she seemed there amongst them all once more. Each shining point was a testament to their love's constancy and the hope that it would continue through eternity. Julian traced her delicate fingers on his cheek one last time, feeling only warmth without heat, as if memories flowing like confetti into lanterns were themselves softly illuminated flames dancing just beyond sight, or gentle light against the night that seemed to echo with their laughter and sigh. And in this moment of tender remembrance, where heartbeats resonated beneath starlight, he closed his eyes for a brief while, as if sleep itself held promise not even death could snatch away from him entirely. It was an embrace offered by the universe that made certain, no matter how far apart their souls might travel in this world without end. He stood up and took her hand one last time, letting his fingers trace patterns only they knew told for a map of paths taken through life's garden where love had been sown among roses and lilies that now looked upon him with such fondness, as if understanding their pain from across the veil. And then he walked forward towards home once more, each step a solemn tribute to an enduring bond, his heartbeat in sync with hers like pendulums swinging side by side through time, unbound her love etched not just upon this earth, but into every atom that composed their beings and the very air they breathed. As he reached for the doorway of what had become more than a house, Julian paused to glance back at her image painted across his heart's horizon. She was there within him still, her constant presence as inseparable from himself as breath or blood coursing through veins that knew no rest until their end came. And he smiled softly, because though parting would be hard for a man who had loved with all the might of life, it felt right now to let her go back into nature's eternal vigil, where she belonged, her silent guardian angel amongst trees and stars in this world they once made their own. The night around him seemed even more alive as he passed through his doorway for one last time. The moonlight bathed everything with a silver glow that felt like her touch on an empty chair by its side, her tender reminder of what had been and will always be between them, untouched yet forever changed. And when Julian arrived at home, where she would have loved to hear his voice speaking softly into the phone for one final conversation before he let sleep take him away, it was a whisper through time that spoke louder than words ever could, her love story written in an endless book whose pages were still being turned with every heartbeat. He settled onto her bed, surrounded by objects and pictures of their shared life, as if they would always have space to rest together here, each item a thread woven into the tapestry that was his beloved's legacy, mosaic only he could see in full color with eyes unclouded. Julian found himself in a room that was always filled with light and laughter, yet now felt hollow without her presence echoing through its walls. His fingers traced the outlines of their shared moments etched into every corner, feeling for warmth where there once had been so much, or gentle reassurance from memories strong enough to carry him back to that very night when he promised she would always be his guardian angel among nature's embrace. The next day, at the lake they both loved, and which held countless of their shared adventures, Julian paddled out into its placid waters with her absence hanging over him like a dense fog that clung to every ripple on the surface, as if desperate not to let go without leaving some trace behind. He dove beneath it all for solace in his memories, and felt an untold sorrow when he surfaced, finding no comfort but what was etched into his heart's deepest recesses, their dream of turning this world they knew so well into a sanctuary where love ruled supreme. In the evenings since she departed from their shared life, Julian would often find himself wandering through her favorite gardens just beyond town limits. Hands that once cradled his own now tenderly touched overgrown vines and blooms as if to say goodbye one last time, a ritual of remembrance for every petal plucked from joy. The moon would rise high, casting its glow on the garden's beauty in a way that seemed like she was still there with him, watching over their shared paradise where love and nature intertwined seamlessly together as one eternal dance of life's simplest pleasure, as her testament to the bond they once nurtured between mankind and earth. Within Julian's home lay pictures on every wall that told a tale not just of his beloved, but also of her legacy within their town, which she had transformed into something far more sacred through acts driven by love for nature itself. Birds chirped outside the window, as if they too sensed this loss and reverberated it in song or symphony to mourn what was taken from him. The days passed like shadows, growing longer with each setting sun, but on one particular evening Julian felt a stirring within his soul that led him down an old path he'd not walked since her passing. The trail where they would sit beneath ancient trees and share whispers of dreams, so bright it seemed as if stars were born from their breath. He found himself standing at its threshold, taking one last look around before stepping back into a reality that felt irrevocably changed without her guiding light beside him, or decision he knew was necessary for the journey ahead in life alone, but still ached with love's finality pressing against his spirit like morning dew upon delicate skin. As night fell, Julian returned to this sacred space underneath a canopy of leaves that had witnessed countless tales spun between two hearts. Each rustle seemed laden with her laughter or siren, invisible thread weaving through time and place as if nothing could ever truly be lost. Here, in the quiet heartbeat where they once found solace, Julian allowed himself to feel an embrace that was not physical but one of every hopeful thought carried on a gentle breeze, winding its way back toward his own soul, an ethereal connection between him and her essence, still so alive even when she had departed from this world they'd once shared. In the depths of night, he sat by their favorite bench under #01 tree with only moonlight as a witness to what remained unsaid, or conversation Julian knew would transpire in time, and not tonight on an old phone that held too many voices for one heartache alone. His thoughts drifted through memories of her touch, the warmth between their entwined fingers beneath star-dappled skies, as if she were still there to hold his hand or whisper secrets meant only for them both, or silent dialogue across time and space that offered no answers but comfort in knowing nothing could ever truly be taken from him. For Julian, this sacred place where earth met sky held more than just the memory of her. It was a bridge between life as they knew it before she vanished into something beyond mortal comprehension or promise within each fallen leaf that carried their love forward even when set adrift in separate rivers toward unknown destinies. And with every heartbeat he lived not to forget, but rather understood the indelible mark of her presence on his being, a reminder through time's veil where nothing was ever truly lost or left behind because it all belonged within him, a love story without end that Julian inhaled deeply as he closed his eyes, letting himself be wrapped once more by her essence that seemed to hum softly within him like a constant serenade of remembrance and hope against all answer, love etched into the very marrow of his bones. The night had always been their shared refuge, its velvety darkness now folding around them, cradling Julian's soul as he sought solace in her absence that time seemed unable to erase completely from him. It was beneath the same stars and whispers carried by wind through leaves where his heart found quiet strength amidst loss, an enduring testament of their unity beyond death's cold grasp, reaching into eternity itself with its silent dialogue across dimensions unseen but deeply felt within Julian's spirit. As he sat alone on the ancient bench carved from a tree that had witnessed countless seasons and held stories older than time in its rings, his mind wandered back to their last night tote forth where her laughter mingled with rustling leaves as if life itself danced through nature. How she would lean against him when they were young lovers carving promises into the bark of that very tree. How each touch seemed infused with vitality and a shared dream for what lay ahead, unaware then just how quickly their reality could unravel like threads pulled from an aging tapestry. And now here he sat in quiet contemplation as moonlight played upon the remnants of his heart-to-share tableau not unlike this bench once was to her and him, where love's roots had delved deep into fertile ground that time would never claim from them nor erode with relentless tides. Julian knew well enough life's cruel caprices. She had taught him resilience in the face of unforeseen fractures within their world, her painful lesson but one he carried like a beacon through darker nights ahead, illuminating paths that could lead to reclamation or ruin. The echoes of her last words lingered around him as though they were suspended in time's embrace. Our love transcends mere presence and absence. It is an eternal flame within us. He would hold those truths close, even if she could not stand beside him once more, and with each breath that rose from his chest to greet the night air as though it was a prayer made manifest by her essence intertwined in every particle of existence around the man-love story without end inscribed within Julian's very being and beyond, into realms where even souls could wander freely, as he allowed his thoughts to drift like the gentle river currents that had once carried two bodies together through sunlit meadows now submerged in shadowed depths of mourning, or place where grief flowed with purpose and acceptance, slowly carving canyons into its bedrock. It was within these very contours of his heart's landscape he sought to reconnect the severed threads that had been torn from her spirit as she vanished beyond mortal comprehension, but not forgotten nor lost in memory's vast expanse where love resides immortally intertwined with essence and substance. He knew then, deep within his core of night held no finality for Julian's journey through the afterglow of her departure. Every twilight promised a new dawn to greet as he walked alone along paths that wove between reality's boundaries where dreamers like himself could touch upon infinite horizons. His love, though silent and unseen, informed by others who might gaze at their world through lenses tinted with sorrow for what was no more was a vibrant hue on the spectrum of his own being that refracted into myriad possibilities yet to unfold like countless shimmering drops within an endlessly deepening stream. And so, as he looked upward at night's celestial canvas brimming with constellations, their names a litany of ancient myth and whispered love stories across epochs long past, Julian found solace in the thought that they shared their own place within this grand design where his heart's silent psalm was harmonized into nature's eternal opus. He understood then, more clearly than ever before, how deeply rooted he remained to her essence, and what it meant for him when she had declared, "Our love is the immortal echo of every starlight that dances across this sky." Julian rose slowly from his place upon history's bench as dawn began its tentative approach, casting first light like a hesitant promise before surrender. Julian's breathing slowed as he listened to his own heartbeat, her steady drum in a silent room where time seemed suspended like dust motes caught midair by sunlight through stained glass windows of an ancient cathedral now long forgotten. The echoes of her words lingered, each syllable painting the air with colors he had never seen but felt in tinsel of vibrant yellows and pinks that bled into his very core when she spoke those immortalizing sentiments about love eternal as constellations themselves. Within Julian's mind was a tapestry woven from threads of their shared dreams, each night spent in her company adding richer hues to the intricate design that told stories beyond words or language he had learned through moments suspended between heartbeats and breath held tightly like pearls strung along his neck. Now as dawn's first light began its hesitant caress upon Julian's cheek, it served not just as a promise of morning, but also the silent affirmation that her spirit lingered with him still, or tender constant in an ever-changing landscape painted by life itself. Julian found himself wandering once more along paths where reality's edges frayed and dreamers like he could touch infinity, his steps guided not just by the path but also by memories that danced before him as if to lead him back through time into her embrace, or dance of shadows in moonlight on a wall adorned with tapestries threadbare from years past. These walls bore witness to whispered secrets and silent conversations, echoes bouncing off the stone like memories that refused to fade away entirely despite their physical distance between them now. The ancient stones beneath his feet felt warm against his skin as if remembering her touch, her laughter resonating through empty halls where once grand bowls were held under chandeliers glistening with myriad light, the kind that could make silver threads visible on a woman's cheekbones. Those days seemed like faded dreams now, but had been etched into Julian's memory as deep impressions etchings of love so profound it felt almost tangible against his palm even when she was no longer by his side to share the warmth with him in person. The air hummed softly, carrying a melody that seemed always meant for their ears alone. Julian's fingers traced patterns along cold marble columns as if summoning her presence back into this world, where even shadows moved forward towards something yet unseen or future painted with the colors of what had been and could be. His thoughts drifted to an evening when they sat beneath a sky ablaze, watching fireflies twinkle like living stars amidst fields, swaying underneath them as if dancing upon golden threads, spun by hands unseen, threads that seemed woven from the same fabric of reality he now navigated alone. Her voice had been his compass then, guiding him through realms beyond imagination, where love was not just a feeling, but an experience so grand it defied understanding and yet felt perfectly comprehensible in its essence to their souls, intertwined or symbiosis of spirit that transcended the mundane constraints of flesh. Julian's heart ached for her now as much as he delighted in these memories, each one a treasured gem within his ever-expanding collection of shared experiences and silent promises woven into dreamscapes where every star was named after an emotion, their names whispered across the sky like prayers never to be forgotten. As Julian walked onward beneath daybreak's tentative glow, he felt her absence as a shadow upon his heart, yet also knew that their love would forever pulse within him in synchrony with nature's own written circadians born from the very essence of being itself when she had spoken those immortal words about constellations. Her spirit was now interwoven into every aspect of existence, a presence not bound by time or space, but rather existing as constant as gravity and light in an ever-expanding universe, where love knew no end. That truth he realized with each step taken alone upon histories and yet firmly rooted to her essence. In Julian's mind was the image of a night when she had declared their connection eternal, words that resonated through time as if spoken not just between them but across generations, her declaration that now sang loud and clear in his ears even though her physical form no longer graced this world with him. Her essence lived within every leaf's whisper to the wind. It danced upon ours. Julian continued his solitary journey along history's bench beneath the tentative glow of daybreak's embrace. He allowed himself to drift deeper into memories where time held no sway and emotions painted every night sky with vibrant hues unseen in our world. He remembered her words under that very same canopy of stars. Our love is as constant as the northern star, ever present yet unfathomably distant, eternally intertwined within this cosmic dance. The bench had been their secret refuge on countless evenings when they could just be two souls lost in a symphony of laughter and whispered dreams. Now it cradled Julian's solitary form as he sought solace from the echoes that refused to silence with her absence, reminding him each night not only of their shared experiences, but also silent promises woven into his very essence like constellations inked across a celestial canvas or tapestry, where every star bore witness to emotions now known by heart alone. Julian's thoughts often voyaged back to the eve when she revealed how love transcended their own time, murmuring into infinity as if through an interstellar radio wave. We are bound not only in this fleeting moment, but eternally so, our souls entangled across epochs and species of union beyond mere mortal comprehension. The words had resonated with a power that seemed to pulse within his veins, echoing through the chambers of time. As Julian's footsteps crunched on autumn leaves beneath him, he pondered her belief in their immortality. Way it felt like she was never truly gone, that existing as constant and undeniable forces akin to gravity itself, or the luminescence that bathed every fiber of his being when night embraced day. He realized now, with each step taken alone, yet forever rooted in their bond's essence, he carried her energy within him like an eternal flame against life's encroaching darkness or glowing ember amidst the cold void that sought to extinguish his warmth and light. The night sky told tales of uncharted worlds where love might just as well be immortal, painting every corner with stories yet untold while she had breathed her last breath into him, a legacy now living beyond the mortal coil within Julian's very soul. In these moments when solitude wrapped around his thoughts like a velvet cloak and silence was both companion and confidante to his grief, he found that their love did not end, but evolved in an ever-expanding universe, where every heartbeat resonated with the rhythm of eternity or cadence born from the very essence of being itself. Within Julian's mind resided a vision more vivid than reality, her image unmarred by time and decay, as if she had stepped forward to accompany him on this final journey through history's bench under nightfall's watchful ire dream, where they conversed in hushed tones about the stars that bore their names. She would stand beside him now, her silhouette a comforting presence against twilight's gentle descent, as he whispered his fears and longings to an audience of one who was both everything and everywhere. She felt like warmth on chilled cheeks amidst frosted air, a promise that, though absent from sight, forever present in spirit. Their love had transcended the boundaries set forth by nature's laws, as if their souls were not tethered to a single thread, but woven into an intricate web of existence itself, her essence pulsating through every leaf's whisper and swaying with each zephyr that kissed his cheek. It was in these intimate moments Julian felt the profound truth settle upon him like dew, that their love would endure beyond death, as an eternal flame flickering against life's relentless storm, a legacy indelibly inscribed on every starry night and whispered secret among rustling trees. Julian knew that the path he walked was one of perpetual twilight, where memories were his only companions, save for her echoes and heartbeats like distant drums, her cadence as constant as time itself, when she had spoken immortal words about constellations to him under a blanket of night. Their connection stretched across the fabric of reality and imagination alike, their love not confined by mere flesh, but spanning realms where dreams took form in every shadow cast beneath canopies woven from moonbeams, or the tree's bark felt like velvety moss beneath his fingertips. It was here that Julian had once carved their initials into the trunken act, now remembered, with a soft smile playing on lips he could no longer kiss, but whose essence lingered in every breath of wind. The oak stood guard over stories engraven within its rings, tales not just of life and death that Julian had traversed to find her, but also narratives spun from the very threads of his being, intertwined with hers, her shared destiny whispered among rustling leaves where he sought solace. Julian remembered their first encounter under this same canopy on a night when stars were young and shy before they peered down upon him, hiding in plain sight between cloaks, as softly spoken promises hung heavy like dew-drenched cobwebs around his neck, or promise of forever encapsulated within the simplicity of an embrace. Her eyes had sparkled with a wisdom that belied her years. She spoke to Julian not just words, but worlds beyond, painting tales in colors unseen and sounds unfelt by mortal senses until they were hers alone. In their shared dreamscapes beneath this oak's watchful gaze, time folded upon itself like origami, or series of moments that stretched into infinity, while her voice guided him through gardens where flowers sung and rivers murmured secrets to those who would listen with more than ears. Her laughter was a melody carried on the wings of butterflies as they danced around them, each pirouette an echo of joy in his heart. It resonated within chambers of stone that bore witness to their love's constancy through epochs where men sought power and conquest. Julian had learned from her teachings about the eternal dance between light and shadow, how darkness was not a void, but rather an invitation for beauty's bloom, with each petal unfurling secrets as delicate yet resilient as their own connection, that transcended earthly bonds. She spoke of love in whispers woven into the fabric of creation itself. Her words were like pearls strung upon a thread spun from moonbeams and starlight, creating necklaces to encircle Julian's heart through every trial they had faced, together invisible yet omnipresent, as she guided him toward understanding love's true form. The night sky blossomed above them in an endless tapestry of twinkling constellations. Her voice, soft and soothing like the hummingbird's wings against his cheekbone, a lullaby that promised to cradle him until morning light kissed their shared memories into waking thoughts. Julian knew he was but a traveler in this world of dreaming shadows, where love's embrace could cloak even the most forlorn soul and offer reprieve from life's relentless storm, or sanctuary that resonated with echoes of laughter and melodies hummed by unseen choirs. As he lay there beneath this ancient guardian, Julian's thoughts turned to her words about the constellations, how they told stories as old as time itself, when she had leaned in close under a veil of night's embrace. Every star was a testament to their love that would not be extinguished by mortal end. Her voice, now silent, but eternally present with a cadence matching his own heartbeat, a rhythm unchanged, despite years gone and yet to come, where he had learned of constellations through her eyes alone as she painted them in colors no paint could hold onto their essence. He remembered how they would sit side by side on this very earth that cradled the oak's roots, bare hands entwined like vines, seeking sunlight yet content to share shadows, and whispers of a world unseen where time held no dominion over heartbeats or hopes. Her fingers traced patterns in his palm, creating constellations as they spoke not just words, but shared visions that danced. Julian's eyes fluttered open to a world painted in dreamy shades of blue and silver, colors he had known all his life. Yet they now seemed more vibrant than ever before under this canopy where time danced like motes caught in sunlight. His heart still pulsed with the rhythm she shared. It was as if her presence lingered within him even though their paths lay divergent and far apart from here beneath these branches that had borne witness to countless whispers of life's symphony through ages untold. In this realm where memories bloomed like night-blooming jasmine, Julian found himself not alone but surrounded by the echoes of their laughter, a chorus carried on a gentle breeze that tousled his hair and warmed him against skin he scarcely remembered in waking life. The sensation was both unfamiliar and comforting. This ancient guardian tree had indeed been more than just wood. It seemed to be the keeper of shared stores, or testament not only etched upon its rings, but also whispered among leaves that rustled with secrets known to few mortal ears. As Julian's vision cleared further from blurs and half-dreams, he realized they had journeyed here together into this dreaming world on the night of their last meeting, or final rendezvous underneath 0117293 pink sky that promised a reunion without end. Here in his heart's reprieve from reality's relentless tempest, he felt as if they had paused time itself just to catch one more glimpse of each other through eyes brimming with tears and laughter, a moment so intense yet fleeting like the shimmering tail of a shooting star. And now that she was gone from this world beyond dreams, her essence seemed interwoven into every aspect around him. He could almost feel it as an ethereal presence guiding his lens to trace patterns on grass and dirt, an attempt by the universe itself at replicating their shared touch. A tender connection persisted between them even in separation, a thread of continuity that bound Julian's spirit wherever life took him henceforth. As he walked through this garden maze within his mind's eye, where flowers bloomed with her fragrance and streams flowed with the hue of twilight skies, each step echoing memories both tender and tumultuous, guardian oak stood as a silent sentinel. It was here that he had once learned about constellations from her eyes alone. Those same stars now guided his way through this dreamscape, where time folded upon itself like origami swans in the hands of an unseen artist, and every second unfolded into eternity as she taught him to see them. Julian's thoughts were interrupted by a whisper carried on wings made from moonbeams. Her voice was no longer audible but somehow felt within his heart's beat. He could hear the laughter in her eyes, even if it ceased to be spoken aloud. Her fingers had often traced constellations upon his palm, crafting stories that danced between reality and fantasy as she imbued him with wonder for the heavens, a vague gift of perspective beyond earthly bounds, where stars held tales not just of myths, but also of love's enduring luminescence. And so he continued to meander through this tapestry woven from their shared history and dream-born adventures, pausing before a stream that glimmered with the silver she once wore as earrings, or peace reflective not only of light, but also joy in her eyes when they danced upon its surface. Here was where he had learned to listen for music within nature's chorus and discovered melodies hummed by choirs whose members were unseen, yet their voices carried the depth of ancient earth itself, a symphony that resonated through Julian's very soul as it echoed in his last encounter with her. Each step brought him closer to recollections where they would sit side by side on this earthen bed upon which countless others had dreamt, and she whispered secrets of the universe into his willing mind, or sharing that transcended words spoken aloud, for fear was a barrier even between lovers. They spoke in unspoken languages born from shared glances and gentle squeezes as they found solace beneath this tree's embrace, their shadows melding with the dusk to become one under its protective boughs, or haven where time stood still yet flowed like rivers of night. As Julian navigated through verdant halls and cascading water in Chapter 27 of Julian's Journey Through Memory and Time, he found himself drawn once again to their favourite spot beside that very steamer place, where water had always been a source not just for reflection but also as an echo chamber amplifying his heartbeats when she was near. The sun began its descent into the horizon like molten gold pouring over stone edges. It bathed everything in hues of lavender and soft peach, her favourite colours, that reminded him of their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves around them as they danced barefoot on this earth. He closed his eyes for a moment to summon up enough courage from deep within himself for silence where only echoes existed between two souls, untouched by words but rich in shared meaning and mutual understanding that transcended mere conversation. As he opened them once more, Julian felt as though they were still there beside him, her fingers intertwining with his own, their breaths mingling like the wind carrying away whisper promises of eternity on this earthly plane where time seemed to hold its breath in reverence for moments shared and yet to be. The sun's final ray dipped below the treetops as Julian stood motionless, a statue cast not by stone, but love, his heart a pendulum of emotion, between longing and serenity, that only her presence could sway so gently in both directions. The world around him seemed to fade away into mere background hums. He was alone with the echoes of their past encounters which lingered like perfume on his skin, a scent too potent for any lover's nostrils, but always close enough that Julian could feel its warmth against his cheek when needed most. As night approached and stars began to pepper the sky above them with diamond-like twinkle after glittering emergence from darkness embrace, their silhouettes grew, towed for a mirrored image of two souls intertwined not just by fate, but a love that had seared its imprint upon each crease and curve within Julian's being. It was here where he could hear the symphony she once sung to him, her voice resonating through every drop in this stream, creating ripples like laughter spreading across waters still of sound so deeply ingrained within his heart that even now as solitude enveloped them both under a cloak of dusk and darkness, Julian allowed himself the luxury to simply be with her memory for just one more moment before stepping into another chapter, feeling like he had wandered back through time in retrospection or journey that would always bring him here again, where love was not lost but merely paused until she returned from wherever we were all meant to go. As the moon rose high and claimed its throne above them both, Julian felt a sense of peace settle upon his shoulders like soft, cushioning clouds. He had found solace in her unspoken language that still spoke loudly within every crease on this earth, where their footprints mingled eternally. He looked up to the sky one final time before closing his eyes, taking comfort from knowing she would always be just beyond sight, her constant North Star guiding him through night's darkest hours when he felt most alone in a world bereft of her touch and whispered secrets shared beneath this very tree. And as Julian stepped forward once more into the darkness, where shadows danced with possibility, his heart carried an ember glowing steadily within her beacon that would keep him warm no matter how long it took for another soul to grace him likewise orphan of love and time's cruel march onward. There was a stillness in the air as Julian continued forward through fields lush with greenery, where tall grasses tickled his ankles while he walked along paths worn smooth by countless footsteps, before our own shared journey began an intricate dance across temporal tapestries woven from threads of history and dreams. He paused occasionally to listen for the music that once played within nature's chorus, reminded now only by a solitary leaf or pebble underfoot, where her laughter would have filled him with warmth as though she sat beside his every step, her comforting presence he longed desperately yet understood was beyond reach. Yet Julian never wavered in allowing herself the moments of solitude when needed most. Instead, these became opportunities for growth and self-reflection on a path lined with both beauty and pain, where love's echoes reverberated through every rustle beneath his feet, a resonance that would always be felt despite her absence. She had taught him to find joy even amid Julian's journey had become less about reaching a destination and more of an introspective voyage through memories that lingered like wisps of mist upon his mind, a pilgrimage on which he was both guide and seeker, yearning for the warmth her laughter brought to life. His hand found solace in holding onto one last piece she had left behind, a delicate silver locket with an etching that bore their initials entwined within each other's names, her final keepsake of love and loss intertwining like vines around his heart, its cool metalled surface now warmed by the faint glow from his embolit chest. As he wandered through meadows where wildflowers bowed their petals in reverence to lost souls, whispers on breezy nights, Julian paused again beneath an ancient oak whose roots had borne witness to countless seasons of human sorrows and joys alike, ere silent sentinel standing guard over his solitary procession. The knotted wood seemed almost like a wise elder nodding in understanding as he traced the initial carved into its bark, whispering her name with each touch until it faded to nothingness beneath years of sun and shadow passing above him unnoticed, or testament that all things must eventually return to dust. He found himself drawn further still toward a brook where water danced over stones in an eternal ballet of fluid grace, mirroring the world around but within its own liquid embrace. Here was solace for Julian's aching spirit, placed between ripples and raindrops that offered him sanctuary from sorrow. The gentle murmur of flowing waters reminiscent of her voice carried through his mind, speaking words he thought had long since silenced by time's relentless march forward. It was as if she were here to comfort him now, with every bubble rising and disappearing within the water's surface, or visual echo that seemed eternal. Julian allowed himself a moment of stillness amidst nature, his breath slowed in tune to her own once breathy whispers carried on wind currents from afar. He closed his eyes against sunlight dappling through the leaves above, and listened intently. There was music within these moments beyond words or notes, that could be plucked only by a heart willing to lose itself entirely. It whispered of days spent together, laughter shared under open skies, where nights were cradled in dreams, sweet embrace, until sleep would call her back home with its ethereal lullaby, melody composed not just from the past, but also for his present and future selves to cherish. Within this symphony he found a rhythm of resilience that pulsed through him. Each heartbeat carried echoes of her presence, as though she were there beside him every step along this journey, her steadfastness born from shared experiences transcending the constraints of time and space. The music swelled within his chest, not to drown out silence, but rather amplify it with its harmonious resonance. In these quiet moments, by nature's handiwork alone, he discovered a kinship deeper than flesh or blood, or connection woven into every leaf that rustled underfoot, and the earth beneath which had once supported them both. In this tender communion, Julian allowed himself to feel her absence not as an end, but rather through memories etched upon his soul like ancient runes of power, each one offering strength, forged from loss or mistake, made whole by their shared love and the lessons learned together amidst life's unpredictable tempests. He would carry this legacy forward, a sacred flame nestled securely within him against encroaching darkness, borne onward through generations yet to come, an enduring testament that even as seasons change and years fall away like leaves from autumn trees into winter's frost-kissed slumber before they blossom once more in time's relentless cycle, the world around him seemed suddenly both larger and smaller, an expanse of infinite possibilities intertwined with the intimate knowledge that he was not alone on this solitary path, love's presence enveloping his spirit as though she had never left, wrapping itself through every branch swayed by winds, caress or stone smoothened beneath footfall over eons. In these moments of communion, amidst nature and memory alike, Julian found an unspoken promissory covenant between past joys cherished forevermore, as well as future sorrows bravely faced with courage born from love's embrace that transcended the boundaries separating